WoW community outrage. War Within is an Alliance expansion. Well, as an Alliance player and lifelong Alliance player, I don't mind that. But let's see how the Horde are feeling about the War Within.
So the community has been going on and on about how the War Within is really an alliance-based expansion and Horde are just the token characters that are kind of going on for the ride. Outside of the three main characters, it's pretty obvious Illyria and Anduin
I mean, Illyria, yeah, they're Alliance. But what about Thrall, man? He's Horde.
Way more important than Thrall. We are discovering the human
about?
kingdom as well as these new dwarves, and so far no really relevant Horde storyline is happening in this expansion, and we're already getting into the beta and we know pretty much everything that will happen in 11.0.
Well, hold on. I just want to say something. I just want to say something real quick before we get into this. The ultimate simp. Let this man's tale be a cautionary tale for all. Right? Where is he now? Still in the fucking mall, left behind by his girl that he was simping over this whole time. Gone. Nathanos is the definition of simp, and his tale can be a cautionary tale for all men. Do not simp. You will be left in the mall forever.
Beta, and we know pretty much everything that will happen in 11.0. Is the outrage really justified? Because according to the new interviews, it is likely a new Redgate event will be happening that might trigger a new faction conflict as soon as the end of this expansion that will make the Horde and the Alliance a lot more relevant than they are now. So what is really going on? If you guys want to buy Total War, Elder Scrolls, or any other game, you can get them at great prices with my Gamivo link. You can also get them warcraft-related gift cards and software, and all below market prices. Best of all, if you add my code DORON, you can get an even bigger discount, so make sure to check out my link in the description and get some amazing deals with Gamivo. Right off the bat, we never really had a strict Horde or Alliance expansions. I mean, some were more biased than others. For example, obviously, Warlords of Draenor was mainly an Orc expansion, although it included the Draenor.
And as an Alliance player, I actually didn't mind WoD at all. The story, look, WoD, you say what you want about it. The storytelling was pretty good until the end. It got a little bit mushy, and the ending was kind of meh. But the start... Oh my god, and those intro cinematics that we had about each tribe, those were freaking amazing. I liked the beginning of WoD a lot.
You could see Wrath as tying up the loose ends of Lordaeron, so being more human-based, as it is essentially the continuation of the human campaign
Wrath was
from Warcraft
certainly.
3. However, despite the themes, I mean, the factions actually kind of mattered.
Although Wrath kind of had a lot of undead theming as well, right? The Forsaken had a lot to do with Wrath storytelling.
For the most part, it's always like we had two teams, and our team went to the expedition with their own cast of important characters that were important to the overall storyline. For example, despite dealing with artists in Northrend, we had significant Horde presence with Garrosh being one of the main characters, as well as Sourfang. In Mists of Pandaria, this was a perfect split of 50-50 as we all went into an unknown land, so either the Horde or the Alliance was too familiar or had a whole spotlight on them. Then, of course, it all escalated in BFA, which was literally the faction conflict expansion. But let's be real, a pretty common theme has been going on for quite a while, of the Horde being the bad guys and doing the terrible things, and the Alliance always on the defense, more noble, and almost always winning, but somehow always getting the short end of the stick regardless. Now, all that is about to change, and I'm going to get into that in a bit with some of the new interviews and the alpha information, but the main problem really is in regard to the past few expansions. Let's be real. Dragonflight was really not about anything specific. Expansion-wise, like gameplay-wise, it might...
I'll be honest, Dragonflight, story-wise and everything, does feel like a transition expansion. It felt like okay, we're going to lay some groundwork here for the World Soul Saga. And that was really it. I mean, Eridikron was a cool villain introduced in Dragonflight, and that was probably the best thing that came out of the storytelling in that. As far as the factions go, what's going on? I mean, Anduin made no progress until we saw the War Within cinematic. Nobody really progressed in any meaningful way. The Night Elves, I guess, got a home. Beyond that, it just felt like a lot of soft storytelling going on, just getting ready for the next expansion, basically.
Been good, but overall,
Sylvanas in the mall progression
whatsoever. Like, if you look at the perspective of the World Soul Saga, Dragonflight was literally just a breather expansion, a filler one, so something could happen in between Shadowlands and the World Soul Saga. I mean, they literally told us that in a recent interview. This is not my opinion. They told us how they planned the entire thing as a cooldown period so that they could prepare for the World Soul Saga. So really, none of the faction characters were important. It was really all about the dragons and the primals, and even this storyline didn't really lead it anywhere. However, the War Within is quite different, and I'm saying this now that the beta is starting, so we have pretty much the entire 11.0 storyline leaked, and we know almost everything that is going to be happening until 11.1, despite the fact that we're going to a random new continent close to Kalimdor that has nothing to do with any of the factions. Story-wise, this expansion is very heavily alliance biased, at least based on the current information. We're dealing with these new Arati humans that is just human heritage and history. We've got the Earthen that are technically
but the Horde are getting dwarves, man. They're literally getting one of the core alliance races. It's almost like a human the alliance getting trolls or something. I think that would be the equivalent.
Horde race, but let's be real. I mean, these are just
give the Horde some love.
dwarves that have traditionally been an alliance team. Even more importantly, we got a few main characters, and it's really all alliance biased. On the artwork, we got Anduin, Illyria, and Troll. Based on the current information that was revealed, Troll is literally just a sidekick character. He's here to talk with the elements, help a little bit, but it's so obvious that Illyria and Anduin are like 3 times more important to what is going on. Anduin is all about reconnecting with the light, learning what it is. He's like the connection with these new Arati humans, and he knows things we don't. Illyria is arguably even more important. I mean, Xel'Atath, the lead antagonist, is after her. There is this rivalry. She might just be the most important character that is going to lead to the Void Division Midnight. So far, Troll has only been in the cinematic, asking Anduin to help him figure things out, and he hasn't really done much at all in the expansion itself. The only other main characters they have added to the short stories is Gazlo, the goblin, who is going to play a role, and we will likely get a goblin patch as 11.1 or 11.2, but none of that is...
Yeah, that gives some Horde some love. Yeah, and I think the goblins are definitely going to become more relevant. We saw that short story book. Did that thing come out yet? But one of the characters in it was Gazlo. He's supposed to kind of take over as the leader of the goblins, which kind of leads some credence to, you guys remember the theory, I think it was from Zaxxas, about the fact that Gallywix is a Dreadlord. Where the hell did he go, man? That guy's disappearing for some reason, which means, shit, there's some probably shady shit going on with him.
Of course, confirmed. However, other than this, even the Horde main characters are not that important. I mean, on the Alliance side, Relian has appeared, Jaina, and a few others, and some Horde characters are here, obviously, but as people are complaining, they really seem to be more like sidekicks, just to sort of respect the tradition and have some of the faction characters, but they're not really doing anything of actual relevance. I mean, think of it like Bane. I mean, technically, one of the lead characters in the Shadowlands, but just sitting around and...
Oh my god, Bane in freaking Shadowlands was one of the saddest things. He just gets thrown off a cliff by the jailer, and then we save him, and he just stands around in Oribos the rest of the time. The Sky Dildo. He just stays there and doesn't do anything. And that's sad because Bane is actually a badass. Now, in Dragonflight, he had this cool moment, right? Back in, what's it called? The freaking, the No-Cood people, where he just slaughtered a bunch of them, turned them into piles of meat. That was actually badass. Bane had a good moment there. Besides that, he's kind of been AFK.
Whittling his thumbs. So, is there really some truth to it that the War Within is an alliance-based expansion, and is it right for the Horde players to feel disconnected and just like they're being brought along for the ride? So, based on the data and information, I would say yes, but if you guys have been following the interviews and the news, I think there is another dimension you need to consider, as it isn't really so black and white. First, and the most important thing, is that this World Soul Saga thing that Blizzard is doing is unlike anything they had ever done before.
By the way, I know there's a lot of elf races on the Alliance, but the War Within for Midnight, that everyone said that that's going to be like a Silver Moon, big Silver Moon reconstruction, uniting of the elves. I mean, technically Silver Moon and the Blood Elves are Horde, right? I mean, I know that they go back to the Alliance with the High Elves and everything else, but that would basically be a Horde expansion. We're going to be in Silver Moon, that whole expansion.
Is unlike anything they had ever done before. They have been talking about it for years, and they're actually doing it now. This is shunning the one-off big bad villain expansion teams and instead making like one mega expansion, which is the trilogy, while the individual expansions are really more like glorified patches that are like kind of seamlessly transitioning one into the other. I think if you view it from this perspective, it definitely changes things. Based on information, Midnight is going to be heavily Elven-based expansion, which is obviously Horde. It'll very likely also include the entire part of that continent, so we're looking at the Forsaken, the Trolls, as well as the humans that are living there. So Midnight is going to be more balanced expansion. It'll be like 50-50 Horde and the Alliance, and for the last item, I mean, it is way too early to really predict.
I'm still hoping in Midnight we get to see the Amani Trolls, and maybe they join the Horde or something, but they got to be relevant to that expansion. If you're going to talk about Silver Moon and the Elves, you got to talk about the Amani.
with any sort of accuracy. The other thing is the foreshadowing and kind of dropping the traditional faction roles, as well as the fact that we're going to get faction conflict once again. First of all, and for the most part, if you've been following the Warcraft storyline since Classic, it's pretty obvious the Horde were pretty much always doing most of the crimes. They always had most of the crazies, and thus far we had 2 Horde civil wars, and Orgrimmar was invaded twice, while Alliance has been stable and never really had much going on with them. For the most part, the Alliance was on the defense and wasn't really trying to conquer the world with some crazy dictator. Now, I'm not doubling down on the Tyrellian Batrope as like he's the new Garrosh, but it does seem like they're slowly setting up some discord within the Alliance itself. We got this new Arathi Empire that considers itself the original Arathi Empire, and they're led by a really powerful emperor from the other side of Azeroth who may want to return back to the Eastern Kingdoms, their original lands, and they might not like the Vorgen or the Forsaken living there. There's going to be humans fighting humans and civil wars happening. It would also be really interesting to see how Tyrellian would position himself here and whether he would sign with the...
Yeah, we'd have to see if what he's gonna think about the Hallowfall Light, this flaming light, and the Light Emperor, because I mean he's obviously a very avid follower of the Light. But that I thought he was more radical until we read that book recently that was released where Illyria visits Silvermoon and everything, and he just loved Illyria so much he was like totally okay with the fact that she's playing with the Shadow. He kept talking about how he still loves her and everything else. So I guess he's not as radical as I thought, but it still doesn't mean he can't flip a switch and just lose his mind in the coming expansions.
Himself here, and whether he would side with the Stormwind Alliance or the Light Emperor is really he's tied to both. I mean, arguably seeing that Tyrellian is a former Lordaeron citizen, he's more closely tied to the Arathi than he is to the Vryn bloodline.
Yeah, that's true.
So, speculation aside, I think there is potential that the Alliance may be taking the Crazy Mantle soon, and the Horde might have to be on the intervening side this time. The other and the most important big thing is the recent interview that has gone completely under the radar. So, if you've been following the Alpha and the recent expansions, it appears as if there is no point in even having the Alliance or the Horde anymore. It is just one big combined faction, and really feels like they're going to be dissolving the factions any day now. This is
there's no way they're going to reverse it ever back to like a faction conflict. I think that chance is gone unless there was ever a reset of the game. You're going to have cross-faction guilds now, cross-faction war bands and everything else. There's no way they could ever go back anymore. The line is gone. So the current version of WoW, we're never going to have factions again.
Driving force behind the Horde being more of a sidekick and not really having an identity in this expansion. However, in a recent interview, Blizzard literally said that some big event will be happening in this expansion and that the Horde and the Alliance are going to go back at it once again. To quote them, the factions always unite, but they always fall apart. Apparently, individuals will stay friendly, but not the factions, which essentially means that this is just justification for the cross-realm stuff to work.
It's gonna be like a fake faction conflict, let's be honest. They're not gonna actually do anything real. I mean, even the last one we had, the War Within, it just became an Old God expansion. We didn't even fight each other, really. It was just, okay, in the beginning, yeah, we're going to bomb some ships out from the Zandalari, and then, oh, N'Zoth's here. We got to deal with that instead.
Fight a new faction war that is going to be coming. They also hinted that they don't want to spoil it, but something should be happening in the War Within that will cause this new faction war. Almost certainly, this isn't going to be a new BFA, but very likely we're going to get something akin to Wrath of the Lich King, kind of like working together, but not really. A lot of tensions between the factions, but also
man, this was epic. If you played through the whole invasion of Undercity with Varian, that was some good faction conflict. Those were such epic moments.
But also fighting a common threat. Potentially, we will get a new Vradgate type event that will create this new faction conflict. So, if a conflict comes up, this Alliance-centric storyline for one part of the expansion won't really be relevant because the Horde and Alliance will get meaning again. Now, personally, I think this would be a great way to go forward. I definitely think we're past the BFA type, like global faction wars, but some tension and working together would really be good for the game. I feel like the factions should get meaning again, and you being Horde and Alliance should actually start meaning something, so that you're not just chilling and following Anduin and Anduin is leading you as an orc character, but instead you would be following Thrall and your side of the important characters that would all be related and important to the relevant expansion. Thank you for watching. Check out my video on the Dreadlords returning by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on the Cultimators and Roman mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Emperor across the street, this Light Emperor, I do think he's going to be bad news. I don't think he's going to like how things are going down right now in the Eastern Kingdoms. I don't think he's going to like our version of the Light, whatever it is. He's going to have problems with us. So he could create this whole, third faction maybe that we have to deal with, create a third faction war. Who knows? But in terms of the Horde and Alliance, I mean, you got cross-faction guilds. Like I said, cross-faction war bands. You also have cross-faction raiding. And none of this stuff's going to go away, so they could never really be like a total faction divide again. But little skirmishes here and there, yeah, maybe. We'll have to wait and see.